Hey guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. Now, I wanted to go into this because I noticed a lot of videos out there are not correctly going through when the retirement trust fund will actually end. And does that mean you just won't get any money? Does that mean you'll get some money? So let me walk you through how the Social Security retirement system works. There's actually two forms of payments, right, that come towards your way. And that's basically the trust fund where they put funds aside. And then there's basically the bonds market where they get money every year and they put it in and then they pull it out the next year to go ahead and use. And what they're worried about and what they're showing with the chief actuary is that essentially the trust fund will become depleted. So they'll be reliant on just the people paying in as opposed to the trust fund to go ahead and assist. And the problem that we run into is that it takes two. It takes the money that's immediately paid in and also the funds in the trust fund from these bonds getting additional money. So we're going to go through that real quick, but let me give you the statistics. That way you know what it is and how it works. Howdy, Michelle Williams, Rosa Soto, Julie Thomas. Howdy, howdy. Now let's go through it. Here are the scary facts. I'm going to tell them to you, but don't freak out because we have an amazing Congress, just kidding, and we have an amazing president, just kidding. And as a result of that, we're likely to see a fix for the Social Security benefits and the problem that we have with the depletion ratio, okay? Just kidding. All right, let's get right into it. Number one, 10,000 people a day retire and will continue for the next 10 years, totaling 36,500,000 new retired people. So in 10 years, 36,500,000 people will go on to Social Security retirement, Title II program. So that's 10,000 people a day. Now, think shrinking workforce, aging population. Okay, so let me go through this real quick. Shrinking workforce. That means there's not enough people working and paying into the system to pay for those who are receiving benefits. Aging population. There's a ratio of more old people than young people working. And yet Vin Diesel, with all his family talk, still only has 3 children. We would expect more from him. He needs to work on that. Now let's get into number 2. So we had around 2.9 trillion in the trust funds. But in 2020, there was a problem. The money coming in wasn't sufficient. And if I seem like I'm rushing, it's because I have a hearing at 10 and I might not have internet because I'm right where the hurricane is going to hit. Okay. You know, the workers paying in to recipients getting a government check. That's the ratio, right? So you have those people who pay in, they work a job, they pay taxes, they're paying in. That's that, 6.2%, right? So the employee pays 6.2% every paycheck. The employer pays 6.2% every paycheck. So 12.4 total. That goes in. Those people work, they earn money, it goes into the government. Okay, cool. So the trust fund dipping since 2020 has really begun. So around 2034, okay, the trust funds would be depleted. That's what the main concern is. Not like the money is gone. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The money's still going to be there because people are still going to be working. It's still going to be okay. But the extra money, the gravy on top that we would get from the trust fund bonds, that money, or well, some of it's not even converted into bonds, but the point is that money, right? That extra that would give you extra money on top, it's just not going to be there because it's going to have to be eaten up until 2034. And the new reports are 2035. So it's somewhere around there. There's no perfect exact knowledge of when this is going to happen. They have, it's windage here, Kentucky windage. They know there might be more retirement people, less retirement people. They don't know the exact figures, but they know it's going to be around then. Okay, so just to go back to that. So the trust fund dipping, where we have to dip into the trust fund, right, will end around 2034 because the trust fund will become depleted. Okay. Now, the trust funds would be depleted, and as a result, only 75%, could be 77, could be 78, could be 73, but only around 75 to 77% of the benefits will be paid. So you know how you get your retirement check, or you might be a retired disabled person, and basically you convert from SSDI onto retirement, or you're on retirement and getting partial SSI, one of those kind of gigs. In that instance, you are essentially running into a problem because instead of getting your full check, you're just going to get 75% or 77% of the check, which sucks because a lot of you use your entire check to pay for all of your utilities, including your housing, which means you would have to then essentially move, become homeless, whatever, which is a terrible, horrible thing because it affects millions of people. And yet our Congress seems to be, you could say, sleeping on this one. You could say purposely ignoring it, sticking their head in the sand or betwixt their legs. You don't know, but it seems like that. All right, next thing. Now, you have to understand something. 1937 was a 42 workers paying in. So there were 42 workers paying for one beneficiary. Okay, so 37, 42 workers paying for one beneficiary, right? So that's incredible. Wow, John, I want to pronounce your name right. Jusuenas. Help me out with how to pronounce that, good sir. But wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The gentleman just donated $20, which is a huge amount, and I really appreciate it. And it looks like a little gaming console, which is ironic because I just bought a Nintendo Switch to help me fall asleep at night. So wow, good sir, thank you. So in historically, 1937, the Social Security Administration, remember 1935, they created it. They were like, here we go, we're going to do this thing. 1937, 42 people paid into the system for every one beneficiary. Those are amazing numbers, but they didn't last. So here's the deal. 1960, so we went from 1937 to 1960. 1960, it was a 5.1 to 1 ratio. So remember when it was 42 to 1? Now we're at 5.1 to 1. So a lot fewer people were actually working to the ratio of people receiving. Okay, cool. Today, it's 2.8 to 1. So there's 2.8 workers to 1. So 2022, 2.8 to 1. And 2034, it'll be around 2.3 workers for every one beneficiary, okay? 2040, it'll be around 2.1. So 2 people, 2.1 people, so 2 people and a little buddy, essentially will be working, and there will be one beneficiary to that ratio. And then around 2060, it'll be 2 people working, exactly 2 people. And remember the numbers, it might be 60, it might be 58, 59, 61, 62, whatever the year is, but there's 2 people working to 1 person ratio. Now, I need you to understand this. We are now essentially past scrappy childhood. What the hell, your day is Thursday? Yeah, it is. But remember, Wednesday we have a hurricane, and in 25 minutes I have a hearing. So we're doing videos now so I can actually get them in before the hurricane hits and I have no internet. So the bottom line is that, because remember, I live on an island, like literally where it's going to hit. So the bottom line is this. What you have to know is that when it gets to essentially this kind of arena where we're looking at, something like where we're at right now, which is, let's see, 2.8. It falls apart when we get under 3, the 3 to 1 ratio. It completely collapses when we get to the 2 to 1 ratio. So the most important statistic you could ever know about this problem is how many people are paying in versus how many people are receiving. And this could be fixed. A lot of Republicans would argue, well, we need to get a lot more people working. And then a lot of Democrats would argue, well, we need to tax people more. And they're both kind of right and also completely wrong. We just need to audit the American government and find out where the heck all of our money's going, because a massive amount of taxes are paid by the working class. And yet we don't really see much direct results of it. And it's not just the money that's going overseas. It's money that just disappears for that $500,000 hammer and that $300,000 toilet seat. All right, so let's keep rolling through this thing. Number 4, so why don't we have enough workers? Population is unbalanced with lots of older people, okay? Women went from 3.6 children in 1960, they're making a lot of children, to 1.6 children in 2020, okay? One of the worst of the groups that basically when it comes to making children, and they look at it by race, is that Caucasian females are not making as many children as they used to. So America's relying on immigrants and the amount of children they have, which is usually 3+ children, to study and say, okay, we're going to take their statistics and add it to our statistics for making new citizens. Because remember, we need more citizens to work to make more money. But remember, you have to look at who's established in this country, who's able to get a job, all that stuff. And then I'm a perfect example. I'm mid-latter 30s, and I don't have a girlfriend, don't have a wife, don't have any kids because I constantly work. I was working until 2 a.m. last night. So, for example, they, through student loans, low pay, and just basically extremely expensive stuff to buy, have forced me, a working person, into I'm too afraid to have children. I'm too afraid to have a significant other because I might have to pay for them and their life and what's going on and da-da-da. And that's why I just have 2 dogs, which is the psychology behind it that not a lot of people are looking at, but we should start to look at because it's the ratio problem. They need me to have 4 kids, but I'm not going to have 4 kids because I can't afford them with the new economy we're living in. Okay. Immigrants coming into this country tend to have higher fertility rates than current Americans, but many require programs to get established, including federal SSI for 7 years, which angers a lot of people. But I mean, think about how are they going to live? How are they going to survive in this country? If we just drop them off and say, go get a job at Gucci or go get a job at Walmart, there's a little bit to it of a problem there. So with that said, also Americans are living longer, so the program needs to pay out more due to the longer period of time. Americans have more costly healthcare costs. There's new medicines, new treatments, more therapies, meaning more insurance money paid for the feds to the medical industry. Even wonder why hospitals are building buildings larger. Ever wonder why hospitals are building buildings larger than super Walmarts? It's because they are heavily funded by the government through Medicare and Medicaid. Like if you guys have noticed, if you go to like New Jersey, there's St. Luke's everywhere. Their buildings are massive, absolutely massive. Florida hospital bought out by Advent Health everywhere, massive. And I'm not saying, having super hospitals is a bad thing. It's a good thing, but they're everywhere and they're massive because they were mega funded by the government. Number 5, Social Security benefits are the single largest line item. That means it's like out of everything, more than the military, more than everything. It's the most expensive thing that this country spends money on, okay? Being more than the military, more than the black book under the table stuff, and even more than what we give to other countries. So these are the statistics that I wanted to go through to explain to you the problems we face. We have to get more people working and paying into the system and paying the taxes. We have to have more children. We have to, and there's no way around this one, we have a destabilized age problem, right? There's more older people than younger people, and that's the result of we go to war, we come back, we have kids. The VA people have, VA benefits, so a lot of them do a monthly on that, and they live their life. That's why they're having a lot of kids at that point. So my point is, we have a structural problem. Now, is the money there? Is the money that we make as a country there to give disabled and retired people and widows and auxiliary benefits to children and disabled adult children and SSI for children? Is the money there? It is, but there's an interesting problem here. We let in a lot of immigrants through Biden, right? Millions of immigrants have come over because of Biden. They are not using the traditional means, and I should say illegal immigrants. I have to be proper with that. I have to be accurate with that. Illegal immigrants, people not going through the traditional system. So the problem we're facing is that we need immigrants and their children to work in the US to make money. But those immigrants, a lot of the times, are getting jobs that are under the table and are not paying taxes on that work that they're doing. The reality is we need immigrants, but we need them to also pay taxes. Because the bottom line is people who live here are not having enough kids. The fertility rate, as they call it, of women of particular races, it's not high enough for some, and it's barely high enough for others. African-American females, it's higher. Latino females, it's higher. Caucasian females, it's super low. Asian females, super low. So, and it also depends on where in the country you're looking at the statistic too. So that's something to consider. But the bottom line is this: we need people to work, but we also need them to pay taxes. But at the end of the line, I see these politicians shuffling all these little cards at the bottom of the pile going, okay, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? What if this? But the truth is, I guess I would say the top of the pile, right? They're trying to make all these choices on top of the pile of this house of cards. But the truth is, the bottom layer of cards right down here is what we actually need to fix. What we actually need to fix is essentially an audit of the federal government. Because if we audit the federal government, just like how we audit the system related to voting, the system related to, how we're spending money on buildings that the government wants to put up, we have to audit the government in total. We have to have a separate group of accountants that they're, for the next 5 years, their only job is to go through tons and tons and tons of information and to find essentially where this money is going. Because the way the federal government works is that the money comes into a central place. And then it gets distributed to the agencies that are going to do things with it, right? But when it gets to that central place, we don't usually have any real accounting standards or understanding as to what we need or what we can use it for or whatever. It's just whatever grab bag group comes forward, whatever agency says we need this much, and whatever the White House says, okay, we're going to go ahead and approve this through Congress. Then Congress says, okay, well, we're going to give this much money to that agency, this much money to that agency, and for the next couple of years, that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Or for the next year, that's what we're going to give them. But the problem is we're not doing an accounting of how much money is getting received properly at that initial point of entry. And money is not being used properly. The richest country on the world should not have to take out $5 trillion per year to pay for itself. And just so you know, $5 trillion per year, which is what President Biden's doing, which is more, he's taken out more now than I think all of the presidents have done. The problem inherent with that is that we can't afford the interest to pay back our loans. And when we take out money, these are mostly loans that we are taking out against the American people. And the problem is that it's just going to hurt future generations. And the current problem, and I love how the government's like, we're really worried about the level of anxiety and the level of depression in America. But what they don't give two bleeps about is what the cause is. They're like, we need to get them on medication. We need to get them therapy. No, you need to get them an economy that actually works in their favor. What do I mean by that? In order for America to succeed, people have to believe that they can work, earn a decent living, and have an at least standard life where they're not constantly worried about rent next month, where they're not constantly worried about food in 5 days from now. We don't have that. You want to know why everybody has anxiety and depression? It's because we are hand to mouth every single month. That's what we are. We're hand to mouth every single month. That's the reason. That's why we have depression. That's why we have anxiety. It's not that we're all genetically messed up. We're not all genetically insufficient or inferior, as the government would have us believe, that it's just, we're genetically as American. No, it's not that. We're fine. We have those who are disabled, we take care of them. We have those who are retired, we take care of them. But the rest of us, we're fine, but for the government being the fox that's eating the bunnies. If there was, all right, let me give you an example. If there was a fenced-in area, right, of bunnies, chickens, whatever, and you had a fox constantly running around and stealing their eggs, and then constantly running around and making them afraid, they wouldn't want to produce as much because they would always be living in an anxious state. They would always be living in a fearful state. Look, I live in Florida. I don't see people boating like they used to. And it's not just the fuel costs. People are depressed here. Other states, like California, they're depressed there as well. They're just afraid to speak out. And it's a problem because, from my perspective, and I'm a big fan of the Democrat ideology, help the poor, help the low income. But that's not what we're doing with this presidency. That's not what we're doing. And the other thing I think that's a problem with our political state is that everything's polarized. It's either Biden or it's Trump. If I talk about Biden, everybody goes, well, compared to Trump. If I talk about Trump, everybody goes, well, he's evil. The lack of education that we have of our political system is frightening. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I've gone on dates over the past couple of years, I'll ask people, well, what do you think? Because it's important. A relationship has to be based on, ideas and sharing ideas. And, sometimes you need a diversity of ideas that aren't the same. Sometimes you need to be coherent on things and together on things. I have not been able to date somebody over the past 5 years who knew what was going on politically at all. And I don't even mean like heavy duty stuff, like really recent just came out stuff. I mean like the fundamental basics of where it's going, what's going to happen. So my problem is that I want you guys to understand that Biden and Trump, none of you have given birth to him. None of you have adopted them, brought them from their mansions into your duplex. You don't owe them anything. You are required as an American citizen to hold them at a very high standard and judge them. You are all judges of how this country is going. And if you see that it's not going in the right direction or you're not happy, you have a civic duty as an adjudicator to make things happen, whether it's keeping the current model and then making them fix it, or getting a new model and making sure that it goes the right direction. You have a civic duty to do that. I'm not saying that you guys have to love the Constitution. The Constitution has been attacked left and right. It was a document written way back in the day. It was an amazing document. It still is an amazing document, but there are parts of it that, obviously don't match up with the current layout. Obviously. But for the most part, 99% of it, incredible, brilliant. The best that could ever be. Made by people far smarter than we are. So the point here is, I just want you guys to ask yourself, do you want politicians going into the future who are going to let retirement kind of fold over and become a much smaller program than it was before? Are you willing to allow the environment of, making money, the environment of, having an economy, having capitalism, are you willing to let capitalism fail so that we can have a government that has to provide more to us, but yet can't afford us because we cost too much and are not providing? Because that's where it always ends. When we go too far socialism, we end up in communism. If we go too far capitalism, we end up in monopoly imperialism. What do you guys want? The happy medium is basically a capitalism system that takes care of those who can't take care of themselves. Retired, disabled, children who have basically parents that have, not run away, and we have to take care of the kids. What do you want? The next video I'm going to do is essentially on the crimes that the disabled are more likely to commit over the next 5 years. And you might be thinking, well, why would you do that? Why would you make a video about crimes that the poor and unable to work would be likely to commit over the next 5 years? Because it's the truth. It's the truth, because their money through this inflation game of the cost of living adjustment is so little now that within 5 years, they're going to have to steal things to be able to survive. That's where this whole thing is going. Guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. I do have a hearing in 10 minutes. I'll see if I can get that other video done real quick. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Remember, the hurricane is coming. I'll try and get some live footage of the hurricane hitting Florida, and I'll post it from there. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.